I started the business now about almost 6 years ago. So in 2013, when I was just in high school, 19 years old. And only thing I knew was that I really wanted to help solve some problems in the world with technology. So I had studied some programming when I was in high school, and I had got a lot of advice from my older brother, who had been working in Skype and many other startups already before that. So then I got to this idea that let's try to solve transportation with tech.
What did bothered you at the taxi system back then?
Well, there was endless problems, as I think it was in most of Eastern Europe. So first of all, there was 30 small taxi companies in Tallinn. So Friday evening, when you wanted to get a ride, you needed to go through dozens of numbers, call them. Most of the time, they didn't have any cars. Even when they did have a car, it usually didn't show up. It was dirty, you couldn't pay with a card, always had to bring cash, and so on. So it was just endless troubles. And what I hoped that we can do is to bring all them together into one platform. So you wouldn't need to do these tens of calls and actually add ratings. So people could start to give feedback and overall improve the quality of the system. So that was the first idea.
And you made the app by yourself?
So I partly made the first prototype myself. And then a few months in, I managed to get a great technical co-founder to join the team. And then we built most of the product after that.
You've tested yourself? I mean, you've been like a Taxify back then driver?
No, actually, I still don't have a driver's license. So we have 500,000 drivers on the platform, but I hope that long term most people would not need to buy a private car. And most people can actually then start to use a combination of cars that they can hail on demand and not need to own, using then bikes and scooters and public transport. And not every person in the city would need to buy a car and create traffic.
How did you convince the drivers to try your app?
Well, it was really difficult in the beginning. So we didn't really even have a product. So I just went on the streets and tried to sign them up on a promise that one day they're gonna get extra rides and then make more money with joining us. But it was very, very tricky. So most of them didn't want to waste time and buy a smartphone. Because in 2013, a lot of taxi drivers didn't even have a smartphone to download an app. So it took many months to get the first 100 drivers on board.
And now you are one of the 4 unicorn of Estonia. How did you grow up step by step? How was the journey?
Well, it was, as I think for most tech companies, it's always very hard when you do it, and then most people from the outside perceive that it looks quite simple, but it was really 5 years of very, very hard work. So in the first years, going on the streets and recruiting all the taxi drivers and taxi companies one by one myself, figuring out how to build a product in a way that really benefits the users and the drivers. And with us, of course, there's very heavy competition. So we need to compete with some of the biggest tech companies in the world. But what I realized is that if you really put customers first and dedicate really years and years of hard work, then eventually it will lead to success as well.
And how did your life change after creating Taxify and Bolt?
Actually, it didn't change that much. So I still really want to spend most of my day solving bigger problems for people. So that's both in finding out how do we attract more drivers, how do we attract more customers, how do we make the product better. So in many ways still spending my time figuring out the big problems of the business, and that's what I really want to do for the next 10 years as well. But of course, as I was growing up, a few years in, I managed to move out of my parents' home and finally get an apartment. So that was a nice change as well.
For creating this company, you drop out school. Do you regret that moment? You got back?
Well, it was definitely very risky looking back. So I was just finishing my first semester, studying computer science, and then I saw the business was taking off, and I had to make a choice whether to actually focus and grow it, or to focus on studying, because I saw I couldn't really do both properly. And at first I tried to just for a while handle both, but it became clear it's not possible. And I realized that building a company such as this is really once in a lifetime opportunity. So I decided to focus on that and take the risk. And one day I hope I can return to university and study something new again, but probably not going to happen in the short term.
But you probably in 6 years you already have your diploma, so.
Well, yeah, in various different fields, but yeah, unfortunately didn't manage to complete studies so far.